Om Shanti, everyone. Good evening. And today we'll be reviewing Baba's Murli of Sunday. And Baba's Murli, of course, on Sunday you would think it's simple, and but it carries its own depth. But Baba always speaks with a language that is very simple for us to understand what he's saying. But to apply it, to practice it, is perhaps where we would say it's difficult. But in understanding his language, it's very, very easy. And so the Murli, Baba started it off by talking about the children being the foundation of this kalpa tree. And Baba is talking about direct and indirect. He's talking about children who are the direct progeny of Shiv Baba. And he's talking about children who are Brahmins and who are the first creation of Brahma Baba, Adidev. And so he says the Brahmins are shown as the foundation of the kalpa tree. That is, they're sitting at the roots of the kalpa tree. So being the children of Shiv Baba, the progeny of Shiv Baba, then being the children of Brahma Baba, of Bapdada, the Brahmins, we are not the seed, but what we are the roots, and we are sitting closest to the seed. And because we're sitting closest to the seed, we are, Baba is referring to us as the foundation, as the first creation. And the first creation are the ones who are closest to the seed. So Baba calls us the direct creation, the souls who are the children of Father Shiva and Mother Brahma. And then Baba started running this kind of difference between those who are direct children or the direct creation and those who are the indirect creation. And so he's saying the direct creation would be very aware that who their mother is and who their father is. And the indirect creation would relate to God through their religions. And so he says that they, in other words, the indirect ones, the so-called indirect, as he's referring to them, would be coming from the branches. And the branches will emerge from the trunk. So it was interesting because the way he set up the Murli with this direct, by having us understand that we are the direct children, by first of all saying we're the roots closest to the seed. And then he went on to tell us about the direct children and the indirect children. And then he drew our attention as direct children. We're not just the roots closest to the seed, being the foundation, but we are also the trunk. And the trunk is, we are deities. So as Brahmins, we are roots. As the trunk, we are deities. And from the trunk, all other religions emerge. So the branches emerge from the trunk of the tree, which are the other religions. So let's just hold this very clearly in our souls, who we are, because in answering that question, who am I? This is an expansion of it, that I am a child of Shiv Baba. I am a child of Brahma Baba. I am a Brahmin. So that's who I am. I am sitting at the roots of the kalpa tree, closest to the seed. Who am I? I am the trunk of the tree. I am a deity. And from the trunk of the tree emerge all other religions from the trunk. So it's very nice to also connect this description that Baba is giving to us to this question that we periodically ask ourselves and turn on being souls, considering myself to be a soul, being soul conscious, but also who am I as a soul? I am these things, the roots, I am the trunk. But what Baba also talked about was, in showing this contrast, was being the foundation, you have a direct relationship with the seed, right? Whereas the others, they have an indirect relationship with the seed because their relationship is through their religious fathers. So he was asking us to look at the contrast between being the progeny of Param Pita, the Supreme Father, being a direct child of the seed, Father Shiva, and then the others, the indirect ones, being children of Dharam Pitas, fathers of religions, and being the progeny of Shiv Baba, but through the father of religions. And so the contrast between Parampita and Dharampita. But if you look at both the children, Shiv Baba, God is their father, but how they recognize him is what Baba is talking about. Some recognize him directly and go and sit by him as the seed, and become the roots and nurture themselves to be the trunk. Others come to him through their Dharampita, the father of their religion. And then Baba talked about the attainments that the direct souls experience and the attainment that the indirect souls experience. And the points that he drew to our attention were actually very interesting. They were very subtle and interesting, because what he was saying, that the direct creation, who would be the seed, the roots and the trunk connected to the seed directly, they receive the inheritance of liberation in life, or they receive that attainment of liberation in life for many births. And he was saying that none of the other souls, those coming from the branches, receive liberation in life for as long a period as the direct souls experience liberation in life. So the indirect souls would experience liberation in life, but for a shorter period of time, whereas the direct souls experienced liberation in life for a longer period of time. So that was the first difference that he drew to our attention in terms of the attainment from the inheritance we receive. Then he drew our attention to a subtler aspect of this. He says, when we receive liberation in life, it lasts for half the cycle. Whereas when the indirect children receive liberation in life, they receive it at a time when there is bondage in life, because they are receiving it in the second half of the cycle. And so he says, and they too, they would receive this bondage at the very beginning of the copper age. That is when the branches start emerging. So the shorter period of time for those souls is from the beginning of the copper age. And he's comparing it to those who received a direct inheritance, which means the golden and silver aged souls. Of course, they receive it throughout the golden age, throughout the silver age, when there were no bondage in life. So that's a long period of time to be totally liberated without bondage. It's 2,500 years. The ones from coming in the copper age will also receive liberation in life, but they, compared to ours, would be for a shorter period because they are experiencing liberation in life at a time when there is already bondage. So they would experience it for fewer births. So for instance, when I was thinking of it, I thought that when the souls took their first birth in the copper age, they may have experienced liberation in life for, say, like 1,200 years, or they would have experienced it for the whole of the copper age and then started degrading in the iron age. And it would be according to number-wise as they come, they would have lesser and lesser and lesser of the liberation in life as the bondage in life increases. Whereas for the golden and silver ages, because there were no bondage, we had a full 2,500 years of liberation in life, and there was nothing to interfere in it. Now, Baba is saying, he drew the attention to another subtle point in this. And he was saying that at the time we experienced that liberation in life, we had the golden and silver ages experience in the soul. It was a golden and silver aged soul experiencing liberation in the golden and silver ages. So the soul was in the same stage, Sato Pradhan soul, in a Sato Pradhan world. But he said when the others, the indirect children, experienced their liberation in life, which is also their Sato Pradhan stage, they experienced it at a time it was copper aged. It wasn't a golden aged world. Matter was not golden aged. Matter was not Sato Pradhan. Matter was Rajo Pradhan. So again, he's asking us to look at this subtle dynamic of experiencing the inheritance of liberation in life as an attainment at these levels. And so that what I found very interesting is the subtle level he took us through, from telling us that the liberation in life is an attainment in the cycle in which we experienced it when there was no bondage. That was the first level. The second level was the indirect souls experienced it when there was bondage. And then the third level was both the soul being Sato Pradhan and matter being Sato Pradhan. And that was for the direct souls experiencing the attainment of liberation in life, whereas the indirect souls had their Sato Pradhan stage in a Rajo Pradhan world, when matter was Rajo Pradhan. So he was saying that we should look at these differences between when he says, you are my direct children, you are the foundation, you are the roots, you are the trunk. And when he says, these are my indirect children, and they come from the copper age, and how liberation in life is experienced by the direct children, and how liberation in life is experienced by the indirect children. So I thought that was quite interesting, the way Baba set the context for the Murli in differentiating when someone remembers him directly and is a direct child and takes the inheritance directly from him, from Parampita, as opposed to when you take it, someone takes it from him in an indirect way. But the underpinning understanding here for me, which is very important, is that all souls get their inheritance from Baba. That inheritance of liberation in life, even if they experience it for fewer births, they still experience it. And that, I think, is very important for us to grasp from this. So it's not us and them, but it is just a different way of claiming the attainment of our inheritance from Baba. And then Baba was talking to us directly, and he was saying, asking us about the level of our intoxication. So he was asking us to look at the percentage of the intoxication that we experience when we realize and we recognize that we are the direct creation of the Supreme Father. So he says he noticed that in us, there was a difference in the percentage of this experience, the intoxication of being Brahmins, the intoxication of being the direct children of God. And he says it fluctuates. Sometimes he sees it's 100%, but sometimes it would drop and he would see it at 50%. So he's saying, what should it be? Should it be fluctuating like this? Or should it be a constant intoxication? If I know something to be true, then why does it fluctuate? Why does the intoxication fluctuate from that which I've recognized to be the truth? And so he went into the whole explanation in telling us how we fluctuate. And he says that when we have it at 100%, of course, we are saying, I constantly have this awareness. I'm constantly in that intoxication. But when it starts, and of course, there is that sparkle. But he says we start losing the sparkle when we start saying, and it is the pattern of our thinking, when we start saying we should have it. In other words, this is what Baba says. This is how it should be. But I should have that experience. I should have that intoxication. So then Baba is asking us the question, so how many years do you need to become complete? And what is complete in this context? How many years do you need to move from saying the words, we should have it, to saying the words, we are constantly that? How many years you need to cross over from should, would, could to I am constantly this. So he says, the Father is asking us, how many years you need for this crossover from 2 until 22?
Yogi bano, jnani bano, yogi जीवन है प्यारा. Yogi bano, jnani bano, yogi जीवन है प्यारा. काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह वश आज है सब मोहताज. योग लगा कर पाप मिटा ले, स्वर्ग सजा ले तू आज. काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह वश आज है सब मोहताज. योग लगा कर पाप मिटा ले, स्वर्ग सजा ले तू आज. जन्म जन्म की प्यास बुझा ले, पावन बन कर आज. योगी बनो, ज्ञानी बनो, योगी जीवन है प्यारा. अविनाशी आत्मा सुन लो मेरी आवाज
संगम युग में परम पिता शिव कहते हैं ये राज
तू है एक अविनाशी आत्मा सुन लो मेरी आवाज
सुख शांति और पावनता से झोले भर लो आज
योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा
परम धाम से आए हैं शिव ब्रह्मा तन आधार मुक्ति और जीवन मुक्ति का जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार परम धाम से आए हैं शिव ब्रह्मा तन आधार मुक्ति और जीवन मुक्ति का जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार
चलना है चलना है घर वापस अब तो यही ज्ञान का सार योगी बनो ज्ञानी बनो योगी जीवन है प्यारा योगी जीवन है प्यारा योगी जीवन है प्यारा
So Baba continued to ask us that question, and he challenged us and said, when you came, you were told that you could have realization in a second. So, and you believed it. And then you went out and you told the world that if you want the realization of liberation and liberation in life, it doesn't take a long time. It just takes a second. You don't tell them it takes 25 years. So Baba is saying, so if you say that to the world, then you have to tell Baba. We all have to tell Baba how much more time we need. Because he says, if you don't commit to maintaining a steady level of the intoxication of who you are and the intoxication of this attainment of the inheritance that you're getting, you will continue to sing the song, we want more time. We still need more time. And we shouldn't be doing that. The world, the indirect children should be doing that, and that's acceptable. But we shouldn't be doing that. And so later on in the Murli, of course, he says we need to use the time to intensify our effort to become complete and give that return of love to Baba. Complete meaning returning, accomplishing that angelic stage and returning that love to Brahma Baba. And Baba reminded us about, what was the purpose of tapasya? What was the purpose of this year of tapasya? And he was saying it was the intention behind the practice of tapasya was to really strengthen our thoughts from being just ordinary thinking and ordinary thoughts to having determined thought. Because he was saying that our success in the efforts that we are making, the efforts that would bring us in a living way, the attainment of liberation and liberation life, depends on determination in our thoughts. And so he says, this is what tapasya was encouraging us to do, was to put greater force in the way we think. And the way we think should be with determination. And then he says, during the year of tapasya, what were we thinking? Were we thinking of being in Baba's, being in this oven, being in Baba's remembrance? Because this is what tapasya is. You're putting yourself in an oven. Or were we thinking that we want to do service? And so Baba reminded us that, okay, there is one way of doing tapasya, which is just sitting in silence, sitting in one place, concentration, like we do our Amrit Vela. When it's time for Amrit Vela, we don't move around, we don't engage in actions, we don't engage in service. But at Amrit Vela, it's like every day a mini tapasya. We're just sitting and we're concentrating with determination on one Baba, and we want to stay as close as possible to the experience of being in the remembrance of one. And in the remembrance of one, we're experiencing both liberation and liberation in life. We're experiencing the home and we're experiencing heaven. We're experiencing the seed form stage, being a soul, being a Brahmin, being an angel, but we're also experiencing being divine, being a deity. So those are the experiences of liberation and liberation in life. And that's what we do every day at Amrit Vela. We just sit ourselves in this form of tapasya. So Baba is saying, but we had to do more than just Amrit Vela during the year of tapasya. So for many children, they may have been thinking, but we also want to do service. So Baba was reminding us that we should be able to do both, because it is the seva. He was using this kind of slogan. Seva means meva. Now, seva is service. Meva is the fruit that one gets from doing the service. It's the instant fruit of this altruistic act, this charitable act of serving another. So Baba was saying, and this is what our lives are all about. Our lives are karma yogis. It is not just yogi. So Raja Yogi means being in yourself sovereign. Karma Yogi means to be in service to others, to be an instrument to serve others. So Baba was saying that this is something that we like, but we have to be very clear in what we mean when we call ourselves karma yogis. And a karma yogi means to be an instrument to serve. So how am I going to get this instant fruit? To get the instant fruit, he says, I must understand what accurate service is, and then I will understand the meaning of seva equals meva. So he was saying that accurate service is, while serving others, I must not become careless in the way I serve myself. So serving others will depend on the stage with which I serve. So serving of oneself is to create an inner stage, an inner spiritual stage from which I will serve others. And this is called accurate service. It is called being a karma yogi. And it is this service that when Baba says seva means meva, it is this service that he's talking about, a service that is done to others from an inner stage of spirituality, from an inner elevated stage. And the attainments, that this is what he's saying, is that to experience this constancy of intoxication is when I am that direct instrument of Baba. I'm serving from an inner stage of being a humble instrument of God. I've got all the ingredients that is required for me to serve. And as I serve, I am being nourished by what is in my inner stage, and I am experiencing it as instant fruit. So Baba says, if I don't do that, if I become careless in doing this, then what would happen is that service is no longer full of love, but service will be experienced as labor. And what is experiences labor is tiredness. And tiredness, it results in sadness. I become sad in that I'm doing so much, but I'm not experiencing the attainment of it. And then that tiredness could drive me to sadness. And of course, sadness always leads to depression. So Baba is saying, I will become sad because I wouldn't experience that instant fruit of the success of what I'm doing. So that was one balance. Seva means meva, and that was the self being served in order to serve others and to eat the instant fruit of that service I'm doing. But remember, the instant fruit here is not the outcome, but it is what it's the beautiful spiritual, the treasures of knowledge, the virtues, the powers that I'm using from within me with which to serve. So if I use what Baba has given me to serve, then I am going to experience the fruit of that. So what I'm experiencing is what I am bringing to the service as instant fruit. It's not the outcome. It's not how others appreciate it or how others others tell me I've done it. No, that's secondary. Primary, it would be how I'm proud of myself that I am able to use the things that Baba has given me, and I'm experiencing the attainments of that. Then the second balance he told us about was the yoga and seva. And of course, again, this is a karma yogi. And so he was saying that we have to experience success in both my yoga and both my seva. And both should be at the same time. It should be simultaneously. And here is another thing that happens to us, is that if one is missing, it won't be accurate. The accuracy is gone. So the accuracy of service would be gone. And the thing is that if others experience what I am doing to be a success, but I don't experience it to be a success, that is not accurate service. And sometimes that happens, is that you put in so much of effort into something that you are too tired to experience the success of what you've done. But other people are so proud of what you've done. And even if they're telling you, you would be cynical. You would say, oh, maybe they're just telling me to make me feel good. But really, I'm not feeling good because I didn't pay attention to yoga. I just paid attention to service. So even though the service was good, the yoga was lacking, others recognize it and experienced it, but I'm not able to. So Bobby's saying that is not accurate because there is an imbalance between the two. And so he says that what is the reason for doing service without this balance of yoga and seva? Why is there I'm not able to keep this balance? What is the reason for that? And he said it was a very simple reason. He said, because I do not pay attention to both. I pay attention to one, but the other becomes slack. I pay attention to the other, but the first one becomes slack. And so he says that I have to pay attention to both. So how do I know that I am paying attention to both the yoga, remembrance of Baba, and the service I'm going to be doing? So I'm doing service in remembrance of Baba. Basically, that's what he's saying. Every service you do must be done in remembrance of Baba. So what is required for that? And this was where I thought this was like the heart of the whole Murli. And I want to really go slowly with this one, because he said what was the reason for that was we did not make plans for service with a plain intellect. Now, we make plans maybe with a lot of influences on that intellect. maybe the influence of expectations of others, the influence of conditions of the situations and circumstances, the looking at what I have and I don't have in order for the intellect to work. So the intellect becomes very heavy with all these conditions and expectations that I myself put on my intellect when I'm planning to serve. So Baba is saying that the way he described that plain intellect was very beautiful. He said a plain intellect means that while I'm doing the service, nothing, and I'll repeat it again, nothing except the feelings of being an instrument. The intellect, is now an instrument to receive from Baba to serve others. So no other feelings but that feeling of being an instrument. And the feelings that I am working to renew this world. I'm not working to fix anything. The intellect doesn't want to fix anything. But renewal is the intellect is being used by Baba, the highest being, for a higher purpose of renewing something in the world. If I were to do it with all the influences, I wouldn't be able to renew anything because I'll be working with the old. But to be the intellect, to be an instrument with only the feelings of being an instrument, with the understanding that I'm working, this instrument that I am is working towards something new. Those would be the feelings that would be touching the intellect and making the intellect stay plain. So the intellect doesn't have any kind of heaviness in it. It is just light and easy and waiting for the touchings of Baba to come through. So Baba is saying also what is required in the intellect at that time of working toward this task of renewal as an instrument is a stage of humility. So that stage of being a humble instrument, Baba says, is very important because only those feelings should be in the intellect. Now, when we talk about pure feelings, we talk about pure feelings in the mind. We talk about pure feelings in the heart, and it's connected to the way the mind works. But here, Baba is talking about feelings in the heart of the intellect, in the preet of the buddhi, in the love of the intellect. And if we are able to do this, he says, our renewal would be very, very successful. Because we're not able to do this, because we're not able to have those feelings of being an instrument and the feelings that we're working for renewal. And of course, we have to recognize an instrument is only an instrument when it is connected to Baba with a stage of humility. If we don't have that, then whatever we're doing is not successful. This plain intellect, Baba says, is also with humility. He talked about, and I think this is how Baba works with the intellect as an instrument. Baba sows the seeds of good wishes and pure feelings. When he says the seed of good wishes and pure feelings is the feeling of being an instrument, is the feeling of humility, where does it come from? Where does this seed of good wishes and pure feelings? To feel myself as an instrument, to feel myself with that great humility. It's that when I make myself available, when the intellect is connected to Baba, And the more I'm in Baba's remembrance, Baba sows the seeds of these feelings of good wishes, of these pure feelings within me. And I begin to experience that within myself. It's not that I have to make the effort to feel being an instrument or an effort to feel humble, but the effort I have to make is to just connect to Baba. And Baba sows those seeds of good wishes in the intellect. And I thought this was so beautiful because sometimes we make the effort to do things we cannot do. I cannot sow the seeds of good wishes and pure feelings of humility in me, but I could remember Baba, and Baba could sow those seeds in me. And Baba says, of course, what would happen is that I wouldn't be caught in the limitations of name and form and wanting regard. But this humility that I will have is I would be working with the regard for Baba. So I wouldn't seek that regard. I wouldn't want my name to be glorified because I would have that for Baba. I am working with the regard for Baba. And so Baba is saying, just understanding this is how my intellect would work if I have the right awareness. This is what is required for making service plans. It is absolutely essential, he was saying, to have this plain intellect when I am making plans for service. And then he showed the contrast. He says, if there is mixture in the intellect, for instance, mixture at the level of feelings. So if there are inaccurate feelings, suppose I'm doing something and I'm doing it with the feeling of, gosh, how am I going to get the regard of everyone? How do I need to do it to get the regard of the family? My intellect is polluted because there are inaccurate feelings in the intellect. I'm doing it now to get my name recognized and to get the regard of others. So there's mixture in the intellect. And so he says, instead of the intellect being plain and making plans for service with that plain intellect, it suddenly becomes studied with not just the jewels, the beautiful, precious jewels, but it became studied with stones. And those stones are selfish interest, what I want for me or for mine or for whatever limitations I put into it. And Baba said something nice because he says, once something false is added into it, then even if 90%, even if he was talking about the 9 jewels, even if 8 jewels are precious jewels and are real, if one is of stone, the entire other 8 are under question of whether they are precious or not, or whether they are real or not. And the trust is gone. The buyer won't want to buy that piece of jewelry because if there's one that is not good, the whole is rejected. So Baba was reminding us of that. You bring in one thought into that plain intellect, the whole intellect is then under question by others in terms of its pure integrity, its pure selflessness, its pure altruism. No, people would begin to question that. So Baba was saying that when we are making plans for service, we have to keep this attention of not allowing any form of mixture to enter our plain intellect. And then he said something so lovely. He said that, if the intellect is plain, and even if the plan for service is small, it's not so big, it's something small, he says you wouldn't feel a sense of loss. You wouldn't feel any burden of doing that. So even if it's a small thing you do with a plain intellect, feelings of renewal, feelings of being an instrument, feelings of that humility, you would experience success. And he says, although you may see the little service that you do didn't bring much benefit, but he says there would be no loss. You would experience that seva means meva. You would experience the instant fruit of it. There would be no loss. But if there is mixture in that intellect, and you're even doing something big, then he says there would definitely be loss. So look at this word loss and see how my intellect, when that thought of selfishness appears in the intellect, when it's doing service, how it creates a loss. It's something nice to look at. And then Baba talked about us becoming like Brahma Baba, us becoming these angels. And he said something really interesting. He says an angel equals being liberated, and a deity equals being liberated in life. So when we talk about liberation and liberation in life, which is something the whole Murli is asking us to experience, from being the direct children to being the children who serve with this balance, the children who got this plain intellect with humility, being instruments that are humble, then what is this liberation and liberation in life that we're working toward? So he's saying liberation for the direct children would be liberation, would be being an angel. And liberation in life for the direct children would be being deities. So he was asking us, when are we going to become complete? When are we going to be transformed from Brahmins to angels, then from angels into deities? Because he said, the task of world transformation is waiting for this transformation to occur, the transformation of Brahmins to angels, angels to deities. And then the elements would speed up in their transformation, because he says the elements are sitting there waiting for the Brahmins to complete their crossover from Brahmins to angels, and then from angels to deities. And then the elements will have that love. Oh yeah, we're ready to serve them. We're ready to serve them with our hearts. And so, we always say that there are three entities at work at the confluence age. One is soul, one is God, and one is matter. So matter has its own natural laws with which it is working, but it's also working in very close alignment with the process of the soul's transformation. So they, as Baba is saying here, the elements are waiting to serve us from their hearts, deep within their hearts, but they're observing this cross. I'm calling it a crossover, Baba's calling it a transformation. So he was saying, without becoming angels, we cannot become the deities. So we have to not just stay at being Brahmins, but we have become Brahmins with an aim, with two aims: one to become an angel, one to become a deity. So he was saying, what does it mean to be liberated at the confluence age? How do I know that I'm a Brahmin changing into an angel? What would it that I'll be experiencing that would say that I'm moving toward becoming an angel? And he was saying, I will have three things. He says, I will see that I have passed in three things. And he says those three things is that I will have no relationship or no attraction. And what are the three things? No relationship with, no attraction to the old world, old sanskaras, and old bodies. When I'm no longer pulled to the world, to old sanskaras of myself or to others or to bodies, I know that I am moving well into becoming an angel. So he was saying, this is the inheritance of liberation. And we first have to have this inheritance of liberation, which he is calling the angelic stage. So this is what the angelic stage is. No relationship with, no attraction to the old world, to the old sanskaras, and to the old bodies. This is the inheritance of liberation. This is what the angelic stage is. And he's reminding us, you cannot go into liberation in life. You cannot go to heaven, to the golden age, without first of all going through liberation. So I cannot become a deity if I don't become an angel, because an angel means one who is liberated. And a liberated angel, he says, is one who becomes a liberated in life deity. So that was very beautiful, the way he explained it in such very clear terms. And then Baba continued with this, and he was saying that he was asking you, what's the percentage? He was into this word percentage, what's the percentage of your intoxication, being the direct children? And now he's asking, what's the percentage that you have become angels? And of course, I have to look at these three, because he was reminding us that for Brahma Baba, it is very important that we become these angels. Because when we become the angels, Brahma Baba then says, yes, this soul has love for me. Because Brahma Baba, he was saying, does not accept the love of a soul that, we all say, oh, I have so much love for you, Brahma Baba. Brahma Baba doesn't accept it, doesn't receive it, if the soul does not have love for becoming that angel, for accomplishing that angelic stage. Because for him, love means to become equal. Love does not mean to remain subservient. So he spent his life from 1936 to 1969 becoming an angel. And Brahma Baba became that angel in 1969. And he went into the angelic world. And what is he doing there? He's making all of us into angels. He's trying his utmost to get us into this angelic stage of not being pulled to the old world, to old sanskaras, to bodies. He's working with us to become soul conscious and then to move into that stage of being angelic. So he was saying, now children, just stop it. Stop simply telling me with your words that you have a lot of love for me. He says, because if you have love for the Father, he says, you will become like the Father. You just won't say to the Father, I have so much love for you, that even words are not enough for me to express my love for you. Sometimes we get all flowery in our language and expressing our love to Baba. He says, that is not going to please me, and that's not going to please Brahma Baba by your just speaking about it. Brahma Baba doesn't become pleased by just your words. What is very important to Brahma Baba is that we don't become bhagats. We don't remain bhagats, because that's what bhagats do. That they simply speak about what it is they want to do, but they don't do it. And so Baba is saying, if we do that, keep saying to him how much we love you, but we're not becoming like you, then he notices that there are traces of bhakti, of devotion remaining in us. And then he knows that we're not working from an inner awareness of being enlightened soul. We're not working from an inner awareness of being yogi souls, but we are simply working from that inner awareness of trying to please him, which is what devotees do. And so he would call us a devotee yogi soul, but he wouldn't call us an enlightened yogi soul. So then Baba mentioned about meeting in the future. And I thought this was very interesting because he told us very clearly of who are the ones who will be able to meet him in the future. And this newness, what will be the newness in meeting him? Now, if we looked at this in relation to now, before anyone could meet Bapdada, whether when Bapdada came in Daddy Gulzar's body, Baba didn't judge us by our inner state of accomplishment and what was going on inside of us to meet him. Anyone could have met him. But he said in the future, there will be newness. Things have to change. And what will change is how we will meet him. So he was asking, who are going to be the ones who will be able to meet Baba? Who will be allowed to come and meet Baba? So he says, those who become equal to Baba. So the more we are in the angelic stage, the more we become those angels that Baba wants us to become, then the more we will feel our meeting with Baba to be natural and real and close. And it's something that's happening outside of a physical body. We will be meeting him in the subtle region. And he says that those will be the souls who are the souls who are yogi souls, but those enlightened yogi souls will be the ones who will be meeting him in that very natural way, who have become equal to him. And then Baba asked us to underline something with 10 times. So he was saying that in order for this crossover from Brahmin to angel, angel to deity, we must underline that this is what we have to do. And he was saying, underline it 10 times. I will transform myself and show Baba. So I thought this might be nice when we wake up in the morning before we come into our Amrit Vela. And again, when we do our chart before we sleep, we say this 10 times to Baba. I will transform myself and show you, Baba. I will transform myself and show you, Baba. We say it 10 times, so it gets imprinted. It gets so ingrained in our souls that Baba says, we won't complain later on, talking about, wow, how did this happen? Baba, why did you do this? He says, no, he wants no complaint. So he's asking us to underline it 10 times. And then he talked about being strict. He said that we have to become really, he calls it intense effort making. But in Sunday's Murli, he was talking about if we don't become strict in making our own efforts, then Baba will become strict. And the strictness was very interesting, and maybe this is something Sister Muni will elaborate on at some time, was that the strictness wasn't the, Dharamraj, the supreme judge, but the strictness of Baba was going to be in the form of the Sat Guru. Because what is being disobeyed here is the Srimad, is the instructions that the Satguru is giving us. And we are not strict in following it. In other words, we're not putting it and bowing to it and recognizing that if the Srimad is disobeyed, what would be the consequence? We don't have that regard for the Satguru in following his Srimad. So Baba says at the moment he is the Father, he's making us move along with a lot of love, with a lot of kind of encouragement. But he says that we have to, reduce this distance that we have created. in meeting him. Because if we're not strict in our efforts, then we won't become equal. And then that meeting with Baba is not going to be possible, because the ultimate meeting with Baba is based on that equality. So he was saying that, you come to Baba, you come to Bap Dada, you take drishti from him. And then when we say to Baba, I will make all these efforts, I will do what you want me to do, I will give you the return of the love. But when we return home, he says that some or the other weakness would return. And then he says, we would remind ourselves that, yes, I did say this, I did receive power, I must not do that, I must overcome this weakness. And then we do become victorious over the weakness once or twice. But then if we don't pay attention, if we're not alert, the weakness would keep returning to us. And then gradually the weakness would overtake us. And then we would succumb to the weakness. So he reminded us of that love that Brahma Baba wants from us, that this meeting that he wants us to have is based on accurate love. So the accurate meeting based on accurate love, he says there's no higher meeting than this. It is a very lovely meeting. And he says it's a meeting worth experiencing. So we should experience that. And then finally, I would end with the responsibility we have toward Baba. And that responsibility we have toward Baba is having love for Baba, of course, but that for me is not a responsibility. I'm not responsible to love Baba. It's a natural state of loving Baba. Baba loves me, I feel his love, so I love him in return. That's not a responsibility. But the responsibility is, what do I do with that love? And Baba is saying that we have, many come, having love and fulfilling the responsibility of love. There are many who, he's not saying that we don't do it. He says there are many who do it. But he says there are many who have love, but how many of you are fulfilling that responsibility of this love? He's asking. And so we had to go inside and we had to look maybe and see, am I fulfilling this responsibility of love? And he told us what was the fulfilling of the responsibility of love. Is this equality of meeting, the experience of this meeting is becoming that angel, becoming the deity, but stop telling him in words that we love him. So he says that those who fulfill that responsibility of love will never say something. They will never say, we want more, we want more, we want more. Now, we want more meetings with Baba, that's over. We want more access to Murlis and to classes and all of that, we have it. But what we will be saying we want more of is time. So he's saying we will never say we want more, particularly in relation to time. But what we will be saying, this is how it is. This is the practical way. This is the practical me. This is the accomplished me. So, the Murli went on to say, some other things that we should do, particularly in being content. We had to do that chart of contentment. And Baba was saying that from the time of tapasya, we should be claiming that certificate of blessings, and the certificate of blessings from others is a result of how much they were content with me. And I will end on this note when he says that try to achieve 95% of people being content with you. because there may be 5% of karmic accounts with others, and so they will never be content with you, but that's all right. But you try for 95% of whoever you have to be pleased with you, and you be pleased with them from your hearts. And the one thing he's asking us to do is not to compare ourselves with anyone. And he says, the tendency, if I cannot do something, I look to see if the seniors are doing it. And if the seniors are not doing it, I would say to myself, well, even the seniors can't do this. Why, how do they think that I can do it? So Baba is saying that for the seniors, it's different. That the seniors have to judge. They have to make decisions based on judgments. So he's saying that in certain instances, in most instances, they have to make a clear-cut decision. They have to say, this is good. This is what you will do. And which they may not say this is not what you do, but automatically it means you don't do it the other way. And so he says that with them saying yes to what they think is right and what perhaps is right, others may criticize them. But he says that those kinds of situations involving seniors are very different from our everyday things that we have to do. So don't compare yourself to anyone, and definitely don't say it to yourself. It's all right if people are not contented with me because they're even not contented with the seniors, because what the seniors have to do is within a different context, especially if they have to make decisions for the whole yagya. Of course, there is an element of displeasing others who want them to do things in a certain way, but they're not going to do it in that way. And then they get criticized for that. But Baba says that is a very different matter, and don't compare yourself to that. So all in all, it was really lovely. It was beautiful what Baba had to say. But as I said, the heart of the Murli for me was on understanding that plain intellect. So I hope you did too. And I hope you will practice having a plain intellect, getting the touchings of being humble, of being an instrument, of being one who Baba is using for renewal. And then you enjoy the balance of service and yoga, and seva means meva. Om Shanti. Om Shanti, everyone.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you very
Om
much.
Shanti.